would be 30 days. So if the voters of Rhode Island decided to make us no longer an outlier, because we're an outlier with that 30 days, most states, because of the ability to do these things in quicker time, have shrunk that. Our neighbors in Massachusetts, it's 10 days. General Assembly could decide to do that. You could vote on a 10-day window. The General Assembly certainly could create a residency requirement, all right? So you would have to live here for 30 days, prove that, and then you could vote within or up to Election Day. Some same-day states are early voting only. Some same-day states are Election Day only. Some states have smaller windows than we have. All that would be decided by the General Assembly. I think the most secure part of same day, no matter what form it takes, is that you have to have a photo ID, right? There's no non-photo ID involved in same day, and you have to have proof of residency together. Most of the states that have same day, you have to present a photo ID and another piece of proof of residency in order to vote. And you don't do that at the polling place. You do that at the city or town hall. So it would be conducted like it is today. And Rhode Island already has same-day voting for presidential elections. That's already the law. I think 5,000 people voted last time in the presidential election, where you come and you present ID that shows who you are visibly and also where you live. And that's been the case here in Rhode Island since when?
Long time.
Yeah.
Just a clarification point.
Same day registration. Clarify that. You're saying same day registration,
Correct.
not same day voting.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Why?
To go along with the, what John Marion from Common Cause, I'm really concerned, Rob, because they want to do it through naturalization of illegals. I have no problem with illegals voting the right way, but how can the town look over those if an illegal or whatever wants to vote? Let's just say they put through 1,000, maybe 2,000 people in October of 2024, and then they are automatically can vote in the November election. No one in this world can verify all of those, but that's what you had mentioned, that they go back to the town. Now, just briefly, tell me how people, can get that, that mechanism in place to make sure those 1,000 or 2,000 people can vote in that town.
So when you say put through, you mean become naturalized citizens?
So
In
they become
October
an American citizen.
2024, with Common Cause, John Marion was on Matt Allen, I believe about 4 days ago, but I should have wrote the date down. And this is brewing right now, it's brewing, hoping that maybe we don't see it, but I saw it, because usually people who become a citizen like in a month, they can vote they only vote for president.
Right.
And now we're in the presidential area here.
Right. But so they're citizens. They become citizens.
But how can they be verified by the town in 30 days if they're citizens 30 days before the whenever the legislature decides that John Marion is right in Common Cause?
Well, they would have to register to vote.
But don't they have to be a citizen for 30 days? I mean, they have to have the residency for 30 days.
Well, right now, yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, right now.
Currently, yeah, so you, just like anyone that registered to vote, whether they just became a citizen or they've been a citizen for 50 years, you've got to register to vote 30 days before an election.
Right.
That's the rule. And then, and folks in presidential years, if you become a citizen on October 28th, you can go and vote for president, vice president only on election day. Yep, and same thing if you move from Massachusetts into Rhode Island on October 28th, and you've been a citizen though for 70 years, you still can go to your city or town hall, and you can,
President.
vice president only, that's
Right.
correct, yes. And in each case, they're filling out a voter registration form as well, and showing photo ID.
So,
My
just
point was that they can't verify them in the town because, Rob, you had mentioned that they go back to the town and everything is fine. Well, there's not much time there. I think I remember that from another presidential, too. They had to keep switching it, just recently, keep it going. Now, I have a problem with that.
No, I understand, I know that the way the same day works is that you fill out a voter registration form, you show your ID, and you only get a ballot for president, vice president. That's it. You can't vote for governor, you can't vote for state senate, you can't vote for state rep or council. It's simply for president, vice president only, and that's been the law for, as far as I've been in elections 20 years, it's well before that.
just clarification on the residency versus a domicile. So the legal term is domicile, correct? So simply being in the state, Rob, doesn't make you a resident in terms of domiciling in the state of Rhode Island.
That's correct. There's a
This
clear,
is the bylaw, right?
yeah, Rhode Island General Law 17-1-3 clearly
Correct.
shows what makes you a resident. And it talks about a whole host of things, like you can still be a resident of Rhode Island and be at the University of Michigan in college. You can be a resident of Rhode Island and be serving in the military. You can be a traveling nurse and still, so there's the law is huge about what it is that.
What qualifies you, correct?
Correct, that what defines a domicile.
Correct.
Versus what, residency, all of that, yes.
But clarification on that, it becomes incredibly difficult to find out who is actually domiciled versus who's present in the state. So you can have people that are transient, that are actually, if I understand you correctly with regard to Eric and all these other things, that there can be people that are in the state that are actually not domiciled here, don't meet those qualifications, but can be resident, and have and possess those driver privilege cards, et cetera. So they can actually look. I'm trying to say, how can we audit that information? How is it possible for us to find out that information?
I mean, we can get you the voter file, I don't
So
know.
other than tracking stuff in real time and being overwhelmed with the amount of data, because you said earlier, voter records be changed by the town, and they get a dashboard, and you have information that addresses that. And we'll talk about the same-day registration in a second, but the material that's being sent, if any individual wants to canvass that or actually say, is that auditable, as we as citizens, electors, when we are qualified, how can we check that information?
Well, the
Because
city-
there's data being sent in real time or near real time.
So the town does that, so the
Right.
town will verify that information, so they send a letter.
Not us. How do we?
Yeah, I guess you could buy the voter file and send them a mailing. I don't know how you'd be able to tell whether or not someone's here, for how long someone's been here. So if you get the voter file and they're registered to vote from 10 Smith Street, I'm not sure how you'd be able to verify that they're someone who's been here for 2 weeks or for 30 years.
So that's the big question that I have, is how do we, as other residents of the state and of the towns that we vote from, how do we qualify or at least say whether that's correct or not? Because it is peer-to-peer, right? We're looking at people that can potentially be our peers in voting. And it can come down to one vote, correct? So we know that particular thing, but how do we oversee our elections ourselves, as we the people? That's the question.
So there's a canvass process before every election, where every city and town has to make the voter list public. And they have to publish that, I think, for what, Kathy, 5 days?
How do
I
you
think
do
it's gonna
that?
be posted publicly, and
How do you do that with same day?
when you
You
get.
can't, because it's gonna be merging the ballots on the same day, yes?
That's right.
Okay, so that means we can't. So if something gets in there, you can have potentially this strange thing, right, strange issue.
Yeah, and as the secretary said before, this is a state law that we're following, and so if the General Assembly feels that they don't wanna offer same day, that's entirely up to the General Assembly, but we're living within what we are obligated to do via the law. I wanna make sure we get to everyone who hasn't asked a question yet, and we'll get to the second round too.
I had just a couple of experiences. I moved here from the state of Wyoming, and I made a trip back to Wyoming a couple of weeks prior to election day, and they invited me in to vote. I said, no, I'm here to cancel my registration in Wyoming because I don't want someone to use my name and vote because I'm not here, and they can just say, well, she didn't vote, she's not here right now, so we'll just go use her name, and we'll vote in her place, because they don't even have the picture ID thing there. So, then I came to Rhode Island, I registered here, I brought my birth certificate, my social security card, my driver's license, and a utility bill. And filled out the paperwork, and I said, here's my documentation. They said, oh, we don't need that. We just believe you.
What town was that?
Us, Warwick.
Yeah.
I was horrified, because anybody could walk in there and say, I'm a citizen, because they didn't want to see my documentation. I'm horrified by that.
Yeah, and along the same lines, we're living within the state law, so when you fill out the voter registration form, you're gonna provide all the information on that form, and then the town will follow up with a letter, and that's what we're obligated to do via the
Get a
law.
letter or anything.
Well, you should, you should have gotten a letter, and if you didn't, we can look into that and we can reprint it for you. But every voter that registers or changes their information should receive a correspondence from the city that they live in.
I didn't get one from Wyoming or Rhode Island.
I can't speak to Wyoming, but.
Can we just backtrack about the legal immigrants in the state and their IDs? Why was it, because this is definitely a different situation considering the border and everything else. Why was it that the decision was made that their IDs will look exactly like ours? When we don't have a policy for that, so that's something that could have been identified from the get-go because the constituents voiced concerns. What was the decision and how was it made that their licenses will look exactly like ours?
Yeah, it's how the law is written, the decision, I assume the sponsors could speak to the intent of that. I think the bill was overwhelmingly passed in both chambers.
There was supposed to be some kind of identification that they were, we were told in the General Assembly that there was a difference in the
There wouldn't be a
two
barcode,
IDs.
there wouldn't be a barcode is what was said on the
Right.
floor.
Right.
That was said on the House floor, yes.
And then there was the
That was
barcode.
not written in the bill.
But if,
But it
if
wasn't
they're,
written in the bill.
if they're here without documentation, you do have a Miranda issue, that you can't self-incriminate. That kind of thing, that makes sense. So there's sort of this question of, what are we doing as a state? Are we aiding and abetting crimes in terms of the legislature? Are they committing felonies and stuff like that? There's a question there, that's a very big constitutional question.
So the answer to what record is kept is what I explained earlier with the DMV and how those are identified as either a Y or an N.
Right.
But the
But there's
license,
no identity
the
on
license itself,
these
no.
licenses, there's nothing
no,
to
no,
distinguish.
I was in the general assembly, I voted for the bill, but I know that the bill didn't say that there was a difference. It said identical in appearance. That's what it said.
Why do we keep on tripping over the residency part of it? Why don't we nail down something validated that really proves where do these people live? You can have 10 people in the same room. What do we do with this? We have people that have been here for maybe 30 to 60 days, and everything that I'm hearing today says they're gonna be good by 30 days, 60 days, fine, good, we stamp it. They're real. I don't wanna color it with any, adjectives.
Well, that's only if they're
It's
taking
been,
documentation.
it's been codified in a lot of different areas that you've spoken to today. But how do we nail down, because I'm a transient guy. I moved 18 times, byproduct of military lifestyle. All right, so this is a mess. In my eyes, it's a big, big mess, and why can't we tap into the feds? The post office can't help,